And now, in this moment, I invite each and every one of you to open yourself up to the love and light that is for you. Breathe in the cool, calming air. And as you release your breath, give back all that no longer serves you. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take another nice, deep, cleansing breath in, breathing in love, breathing in light, breathing in the universal spirit. And as you release this breath, allow your body to just relax in this moment. And allow your mind to be here, now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge.
I acknowledge.
Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words. I surrender.
I surrender.
Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive.
I forgive.
Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose.
I choose.
I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought-fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept.
I accept.
Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me. I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release.
I release.
Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I'm grateful for the good in your lives.
I'm grateful for the good in your life.
This is a series on mysticism, practical mysticism, largely drawn from the works of Evelyn Underhill. And if that doesn't sound terribly exciting, well, I'm here to spice it up. First of all, mysticism, or being a mystic, if you've thought of yourself, do you think of yourself as being a mystic? Do you sit around the house thinking of yourself as being a mystic? It's a word that in Western culture has negative connotations. You know, it sounds strange. Mystics are sort of disruptive influences in orthodoxy. So the word, if you want to keep being a mystic, but you don't want that label hung on you, in the Western world they're called contemplatives. Okay, a rose by any other name, but it's the same thing. Have you heard of Christian contemplatives? Were you brought up with? Yes, of course. The ascetics and the hermits, and there's a word for that I can't think of right now. It'll come to me in a minute. Anchorites. People who went out and lived in a cabin in the woods and communed with the God of their understanding and wrote about it, wrote poetry, wrote songs, and so on. You know, these were contemplatives. So again, if you want to pass successfully in your neighborhood as a non-mystic, a team player, think of yourself as a contemplative. So what is it we're contemplating? A paradox, which, by the way, is the theme for Centers for Spiritual Living this month in all of the centers. I'm a disruptor, so I don't typically follow the themes, but this one does kind of cross paths nicely with us. The idea of paradox. There's an ultimate paradox in this teaching that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. That's a huge paradox right there. And this is what I think I find myself speaking about and teaching about pretty much all the time, is how to manage that paradox, because what typically we want to do with paradox is eliminate half of it. Then it's no longer a paradox, then it's just dogma, that we are this. But we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So the human part of us wants to have practical answers, wants to have stuff to be implemented on a daily basis. And the spiritual part of us has another agenda, which is that we should know ourselves, which is simply that we should know ourselves. And you've heard me quote Kennedy Schultz, who was a wonderful religious science minister, who said, you don't have a spiritual side, all you are is spirit. And that's true. And at the same time, we do have a material expression, a material existence that we go through. So the challenge always is to make this practical, useful. How do I take this to work with me? How do I, take it home, take it to the family, travel with it over the holidays, and at the same time, not dilute it, not cheapen it, dumb it down, the incredible opportunity that each one of us has to commune with the infinite. So that's, anyway, what we're doing here today. And I just love how this woman writes. And she was writing 108 years ago, this particular book that we're working through called Practical Mysticism. And I think what I'm going to do now that I've kind of teed it up for you is I'm going to read you a passage of hers and then tell you what I think it means to me. And I've got some more passages if I need to kill some more time. I mean, if I need to, no. And these will be put in the chat on Facebook and also on YouTube. And finally, we have copies of her book available across the way in the bookstore. We have 2 copies of the book in book form that you can buy. It's also available as a free download because it's in the public domain. You can Google it and you can download the PDF, which is very handy. But if you'd like to support our bookstore and you like actual tactile kinds of books, well, we have them over there for you. Okay, let me read you this passage. Let's see what you think about it. I take off the reading glasses to read. I don't know why. It's tiny little print here. What would it mean for a soul that truly captured this idea of the mystical state? This life in which the emphasis should lie on the immediate precepts, the messages the world pours in on us, instead of on the sophisticated universe in which our clever brains transmute them. Plainly, it would mean the achievement of a new universe, a new order of reality. Escape from the terrible museum-like world of daily life where everything is classified and labeled, and all the graded, fluid facts which have no label are ignored. It would mean an innocence of eye and an innocence of ear impossible for us to conceive. The impassioned contemplation of pure form, freed from all the meanings with which the mind has draped and disguised it. The recapturing of the lost mysteries of touch and fragrance, most wonderful amongst the avenues of sense. It would mean the exchanging of the neat conceptual world our thoughts build up, fenced in by the solid ramparts of the possible, for the inconceivable richness of that unwalled world from which we have subtracted it. It would mean that we should receive from every flower not merely a beautiful image to which the label flower has been affixed, but the full impact of its unimaginable beauty and wonder, the direct sensation of life, having communion with life, that the sense of ceasing rain, the voice of trees, the deep softness of the kitten's fur, the acrid touch of sorrel on the tongue. Sorrel, that's an herb, isn't it? Should be in themselves profound, complete, and simple experiences calling forth simplicity of response in our souls. Okay, I like how she writes. I find it very pretty. And what she's saying there, the gist of this body of work for today, is to cease judgment as much as possible on the condition and values of things that we experience. She mentions classification several times. She mentions labeling. We label things. We decide how useful they are. She says that people are driven by the need to know in any situation, how does this benefit me? How does this benefit me? And when you break through that ego structure, you have a greater tendency, likelihood, of merging with the thing that you're perceiving into its pure state of standalone existence than you are if you look at it as simply something that you can eat, or something that you can wear, something that you can put in your pocket and carry around with you. In other words, to enjoy things for things' own sake is a way to break down the barrier that exists between ourselves
and our experience, which she calls the plate glass window of mind. She says, when I was a little kid, we used to window shop down on Fifth Avenue and environs, and around this time of year, it was later then, really, they'd start putting up the Christmas windows. The Christmas season didn't start, on Labor Day back in those days. So, it was closer, like actually after Thanksgiving, I suppose. And I remember with my people, little kid, looking at these windows, and there's beautiful stuff in there, and you'd see stuff. I mean, I didn't care as a little kid, like, about purchasing things, but people would look. You've seen this in movies. They look, oh, look at the dress in the window, or look at the suit in the window, or look at this in the window. Isn't that great? And if only, and these windows then at the holidays would be decorated as a beautiful, magical winter wonderland sort of thing. And it's like, oh, if only I had, if only we had a sleigh. What would you do with a sleigh, especially around here? We pull each other around in it. Maybe we'll have sleigh day at Creative Life. We'll just out on the lawn here, first frost or something. So there's this image that in her time especially was very prominent in an urban sense of the plate glass. Well, you look through the window, and that's how a company would advertise to people, is put stuff in the window and so on. Well, she says, well, we have a window that we look through that is of our own creation. We separate ourselves from reality, and we look through this window, and then we dirty up the window. One thing you can do is write your own judgments on the window. Then you can't see past them. You know what I mean? You scribble. Imagine with a marker, you scribble all of this narration of what you're seeing on the window. Then you're not seeing through the window. You're seeing the narration on the window. She says that every now and then a good rainstorm comes along and it washes the window clean. And this is called the mystical experience, the big contemplative breakthrough. And she asks, do you not recall more? She says, it is probable that you are or have been an actual contemplative too. Has it never happened to you to lose yourself for a moment in a swift and satisfying experience for which you found no name, when the world took on a strangeness and you rushed out to meet it in a mood at once exultant and ashamed? Wow. Ashamed, why? That I haven't seen this before, that I haven't done this, but that I forgot about this, that maybe in childhood I knew my connection with the infinite and I could sense it in nature. And since then I've gotten so busy explaining it and parsing it and narrating it for other people in the world that I've lost that. And it's sad, but it's mostly exultant, this feeling that you have that suddenly comes over you, where everything that we talk about becomes a direct and immediate experience. Ernest Holmes had a mystical experience. He had many of them, I'm sure, but he had one that's famous and it's detailed, and it's where he was giving a talk at the launching of a new center in California in the late 50s. And in the middle of his talk, he interrupted himself, and he said, I see it now. The veil is thin between. We do mingle with the hosts of heaven. Some of you have heard the recording of this. And I shall say no more. And he went and sat down. And, of course, speculation ran wild as to what was the matter with the man. Was he having, a stroke or something? And he was fine. He went and had punch and cookies after this event, and then he went home, and he never told anyone, or it's never leaked out anyway, what he felt he was going through. Well, what I think he was, and so it's become woo, but I think what he was going through was, if you talk about God and you think about God and you write about God and you devote your whole life to God, or whatever you want to call God, one day God comes walking right down the aisle. That which we think about, that which we ardently desire, must it is said, become our experience. And so that something came walking in, and it's like, whoa, it blew his mind because he wasn't expecting it. And that's another thing about the contemplative or mystical experience when it hits you, like she describes it. It never comes when it's convenient for you. I can tell you this firsthand. It never comes convenient for you. I mean, you won't drive off the road or something, but it doesn't fit itself into your appointment book because it doesn't obey the laws of space and time, you see. And so it just occurs to you, and all of a sudden, and a number of you in classes have mentioned this experience that you had where it's very similar to one another, where one day you're sitting there and all of a sudden everything just comes apart at the seams and dissolves into this kind of particular particle, state. And as soon as you, like, what is going on, it puts itself back together in its ordinary reality again. All of a sudden you've looked kind of behind the curtain. All of a sudden you've looked at the great sketchbook behind the form, And again, as soon as it dawns on you that that's what's happening, or something like that is occurring outside the norm, then the norm comes back in, and you proceed on from there. And if you get more comfortable with it, this kind of thing happens more and more often. So she says that we have this plate glass window in mind, we write stuff on it, and life cruds it up too. Just mud gets splashed on it, and just the passage of time, it gets a little dingy and all. And she says, so now and then a rainstorm will come along and wash it clean, and you see directly into the heart of the matter. But she said, you can also develop a spiritual practice, a spiritual discipline of keeping it clean. It's so much easier to deal with stuff as it comes, isn't it? Than when it all accumulates. I was clearing out email the other day. I read my news sources, and they have a lot of articles about music. They'll ask, for example, a musician what the 5 other musicians are who made the most difference to them. I read this and I save it. I read it online and I save it as an email, and I email it to myself, right? Okay. And it goes into the little folder, little name thing there, of me. I have like 1,500 of these that I haven't sorted, which makes it impossible to find anything. So I've decided, well, this week in the downtime that I have, which isn't much, I'm going to sit through and I'm going to sort this. Okay, mixed in with those are things on research, archaeology, the Houston Astros, whatever, that I've sent myself. And so I want to sort all this stuff out. Now, while I'm doing that, more emails will be coming in. I'll be sending myself more articles. It never ends, does it? But what it's reminding me, and why I bring it up, is how much easier it would be if as soon as the thing came in, I either read it, deleted it, or saved it to a folder, and that way I wouldn't have all of this backlog. Now, that's just one area of life. Okay? Think of all of the different laundry, all of the housework, all of the different things that we have that pile up because we don't get to them. And then imagine in consciousness all of the judgments that pile up because we never get to them. All of the things that we never disempower within ourselves because we never get to them. And by that I mean at some point in time in life we decide that this is trouble. Or this is beyond my understanding. I'm not capable of knowing this. This is beyond my understanding. And we make these judgments and we embed these judgments in consciousness. And these are, yes, judgments. And once they're embedded in consciousness, they keep being active and productive until we change them, right? And so this is prejudice. This is prejudicial thinking, prejudicial feeling, prejudicial consciousness. And what it does is it narrows down your world. The walls close in. Pretty soon I can't do this and I can't go here and I can't trust and I can't, so you get more and more squeezed and unhappier, more depressed about this. because of an old belief. Because of an old belief. Look at how often we associate present time with past time. Like, October, like fall, like, I don't know, birthdays and anniversaries and things that we associate feeling with, songs that come on that you hear and it throws you back. And it's unconscious almost, except it's not quite. It's not quite. It's got a little thread coming out of it where you can take it and tug it up out of consciousness. It's not operating entirely beyond our control. It's just we haven't tended to look there. We've tended to look straight ahead, you see. So we reach inside the self and we say, what would it be for me? She uses the example of a flower. What would it be for me to have a direct experience of something without expectation or judgment of any kind? Now, often when I bring this up, somebody's bound to say, well, don't we need some judgment? Yes, of course we do. That's why it's a paradox. See, it'd be real easy. Never judge anything again. Be real easy to say that. Never judge anything again. Class dismissed. But that's not how it works. Of course some judgment is required. But we don't have to judge every blessed thing to pieces the way that we do. Is this a good flower? How does this flower smell compared to other flowers? Is it a brighter color of flower? Is it blah, blah, blah? And we go on and we classify and we quantify and stuff, and we miss the direct experience. How about to just be with the flower? And like I brought up last week in the story about the salmon that escaped, it's like, how would it feel to be a flower? This is the kind of stuff they teach toddlers, They role play and they do these little things, and it's like, okay, imagine you're a tree or a cloud or something. And we get to our age and we think, well, that's pointless. I mean, it's entertainment for the toddlers and stuff, but for me, no, I have business to transact. And instead, to have the direct experience of life is a joyous sort of thing. It's such a freeing thing. How would it feel to be a flower? If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? Have you ever asked yourself that? And if you're embarrassed to because of what other people might think, you can do it privately. What kind of tree would you like to be? And notice that somebody said something to me this week, that you've heard a million times, and it struck me as real profound to hear it again, is that you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you cannot count the number of apples in a seed. Think about that a moment. That's really deep, And somebody will explain, well, that's because the phylum of the seed, how the mitosis and, all this. Okay, yeah, well, it's really... To have that kind of perspective on things takes setting judgment aside, setting the ego attachment that we have to the usefulness of things aside for just a moment. We don't have to do it all the time, folks. We don't have to do it all the time. It's everything that's taught in religious science is for particular spiritual practice. It's not meant to move everything else off the shelf. There's a time for every feeling. You've heard all of us say this. If you're angry, if you're this, it's perfect for you. Now ask it what it wants. Ask what information it has for you. You don't have to be cheerful all the time. You don't have to do this all the time. This is a suggestion for practice some of the time where you just stand there and you look at life in a whole new way and you merge with it, because there is what she calls the transcendent fact. TF. Capital T, capital F. The transcendent fact. The transcendent fact of anything is the essence of that thing, independent of any application. Let's think about ourselves. You are a role in the world. You have a part to play in your family, in your workplace, in all of your clubs and societies and involvements that you're in, okay? You may have honors and you may have a reputation for being really good at some stuff and all of that. And all of that is put on you and all of that's hung on you as a label. You may be the life of the party. You may be the class clown. And people say, oh, here comes so-and-so. Get ready for a good laugh, you know. And, okay, or you may be the serious one. You may be what they call the adult in the room, right? Who kind of brings the sober attention to things. All of these are labels that are hung. Back of all of that, of how you are interpreted in the world, is how you feel about yourself. Back of that is who you are when you don't feel about yourself. Okay? When you are knowing yourself not as a succession of experiences, but you're knowing yourself as the single experience that the deity is having of itself by means of you. Does that make sense? Or what does God think of me? And you let go of the parental imagery and the stuff that we've come up with where God's happy whether you're not happy, and break down the separation. What is God in me, as me, expressing right now? It's more than my body, more than my thoughts, more than my feelings, more than anything that I can name. And I want to go stand in the presence of that from time to time and just be. And man, it is tough to just be. I was actually in a workshop one time where they put a bunch of us on a stage, and they said, just stand there and be who you are. This is years ago, okay? Real powerful, the simplest experiential exercise you can possibly imagine. And one person threw up. Standing in front of a large group of people, a couple of hundred, in groups of 20 or so, we were put on this stage, and we weren't asked to sing or dance or, perform. In fact, we were asked to just drop all pretense. So what I did, because I saw this coming, I stood there looking cool and free of pretense. I said to myself, I said, I've got this. I can do this. Also with sort of a thoughtful, pensive expression on my face, like I understand why we're doing this. And I'm on board. Which of course got called out because it was written all over me. I just couldn't see it because I was on the inside looking out, right? And the people who were really, I don't like this word, but I'll say it, authentic. The people who were really authentic in the exercise threw up. Okay, or turned around with their back to the group because they were actually exploring the dynamic in them that was keeping them separate. You see what I'm saying? And so when you're told not to act and just be yourself, and you go into the act of being yourself, it doesn't really accomplish the purpose. And the point of the exercise was not to humiliate or degrade anybody, although it jolly well did. But the point of the exercise was to illustrate how difficult it is to move past what they called the story that we have about who we are and how we are. Okay, I've got just a couple more things I need to share with you from her. These need cleaning. What is that smears the windows of the senses? Thought, convention, self-interest. We throw a mist of thought between ourselves and the external world, and through this we discern as in a glass darkly. You've heard that expression before, right? We discern as in a glass darkly that which we have arranged to see. It seems a pity to remain in ignorance of this, to keep, as it were, a plate glass window between yourself and your fellow dancers. All those other thoughts of God, perpetually becoming, changing, and growing beside you. Inevitably, too, we see the narrow world our windows show us, not in itself, but in relation to our own needs, moods, and preferences. We continue to name the living creatures with all the placid assurance of Adam. You remember he did that? All the creatures were led before him, and he gave them a name. The problem with giving all the creatures a name is that then they have to become that name only. And this is a horse, and that's a dog, and this is a something else. And at that level doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but if we're assigning value, it does. And so everything gets paraded before us, and we give it a name, and then it takes that name. And it puts me in mind of Emma Hopkins' statement, you've heard me quote a bazillion times, that the world will persist in exhibiting before you what you persist in affirming the world is. The world will persist in exhibiting before you what you persist in affirming the world is. Often we look at a statement like that as being about manifestation, that life can only give you as much as you expect. And that's true, but it's more true, or true on a grander scale, from the standpoint of that the experience of right now, not the manifestation that's yet to come, but the experience of right now in the world can only conform itself to the depth of expectation one has for it. We were talking, those of us sitting up at the front who talk a lot to each other, we're saying, you know, oh man, this is a beautiful day, and I heard one say, oh, this is the most beautiful day we've had, and I started to turn around and say, well, yesterday was pretty beautiful too. You know, on the beauty scale, it was an 88.7, and I don't, right? And so in a couple of weeks, we'll have the 7th prettiest day of the fall. And you see what I mean. And this, again, is what we do. Instead of stand in the moment and just, it is. You remember last month, I am. Not I will be, or I used to be, or I could have been. But I am. I am. This moment, I am becoming. But where am I becoming from? I'm becoming from this moment in which I stand right now. And it also, this passage puts me in mind of a statement I've quoted for you a bazillion times, which comes from, I forget where now, but it's in the Hindu writings. I think it's a Patanjali canon, but I'll look it up when I get home, or they can. Doing it now. Just roll it out. Yeah. It is this. Now, if this doesn't cause nuts and bolts to fall out your ears, I don't know what will. Things are not as they seem, nor are they otherwise. Now, what, as Jimmy Olsen's boss used to say, what the deuce does that mean? Things are not as they seem, nor are they otherwise. So they are what they are, and to me, they are my expectation. And to you, they are your expectation. And to the next person, it's their expectation. And the three of us could stand there in front of this thing and have three different sets of experiences. In fact, we always do, because of our expectation and our background and everything else. And so you put the piece of art hanging on the wall, and we say, well, how do you feel about it? What does it mean? And I told you a story a few weeks ago about blank canvases being put up and this person standing there and interpreting them, you know. Well, we do that all the time. Life is that blank canvas. And we look at it and we say, what does this mean? What does this signify? So all she's suggesting, and we'll get more into this next, we got a couple more weeks of her, 3 actually more weeks of her, and then we'll get to some Ernest Holmes and his Asilomar writings. But all she's suggesting, and all I'm suggesting, is to be aware that we have the tendency to do this. And notice that. And obviously, if we notice that we're doing it and we judge ourselves for doing it, then it's just, that's fruitless, right? That's one more layer of judgment that we've slathered on top of the whole thing. But if instead we can just be aware that we're doing this, and we're saying, I'm looking at this thing for value. I'm looking at a stage extension right now for value, for functionality, you know, and it does this and that and the other. What if I just stood back and you know what it really comes down to, now that I think of it? What if I just stood back and shut up, you know, and let that thing say, and let the flowers say, and let the trees say, and let the clouds say, let life speak, let nature speak. I might be astonished. I might be astonished, and I might find that what I've been seeking the whole time is not so much answers as it is to be astonished, and the feeling of that. So let's know together now, one life, one power, one presence. And what I'm affirming and knowing for each of us is a willingness to stand in the presence of beauty and wonder and grace, without expectation, without narration, to just be. For the great I am. The great I am has shown up here as each one of us. It's unfolding through us, through our thoughts and desires and actions. I affirm and know for each soul hearing these words, a comfort with the self, to just be. For the only power there is, the only presence, the only creator, is in fact right with you now, expressing and knowing through you. And so there's nothing to need, nothing even to truly prepare for in the sense of spiritual understanding. More, it's an uncovering, it's a revealing, and often a letting go. And I affirm and know that this is easy for us, that it's our true nature, that all life goes full circle through goals and activities and achievements back to that simple place of knowing I am. And I am is enough. For this knowing, the way that it registers in the minds and hearts of each of us, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your love and your energy. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your support. It is because of what you give to us that we can be here to you. And thank you for all of your monetary donations. It helps to keep the lights on. And we are so grateful no matter how big or how small you give. Trust me, it is huge in our realm, and we are so very grateful for it. I invite you now, as our little ushers are waiting in the back. Hi, ladies. Our wonderful little cute ushers. I invite you now to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
So, yesterday was nice and cool. So this, we can. I almost hesitate to say it, officially say we're in fall. Although, because of the drought, some of the trees have already been in distress, and they are already starting to do what trees are famous for in fall, which is lose their leaves. Okay, so the trees right now are teaching us a spiritual lesson, that it's good to let go of things. So I'm going to invite you, for just a moment, to think about something that you would like to let go of. Something maybe that you've been holding on to for too long. Something that you thought was working and isn't. Just whatever it is. Something that you would like to let go of. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is hold it in your hand. Bless it. And then let it go. Bless it and let it go. It's easier to let things go when we bless them on their way. And know with me that there is one power, one presence, one life, one love. I live that life. I love that love. I am the channel for that presence in this world. Just as I know that each and every one of you are that. And as we come into this fall season, as we are in the harvest, it is now time to reap what we have sown, to curate for the next year, but it is also time to let go. So as you are separating your wheat from your chaff, know that you don't have to keep the chaff. Bless it and let it go. Bless it and let it go. And be grateful. Simply gratitude for what has shown up in your life, for what you have harvested, and for what you are letting go of. I am grateful for this teaching. I am grateful for this community. I am grateful for a place that accepts me exactly as I am, welcomes me exactly as I am, welcomes each and every one of you exactly as you are. I'm grateful for our ministers, our practitioners, our musicians, the technology. I'm grateful for each and every one of you. And I relax, release, and know that it is so. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use
And
it.
I love it.
And I love
And
it.
so it is.
And so it